So today's project is a truck project. The problem / opportunity at hand here is that this tailgate right here is way too tanky. The thing about this truck is I bought it never having owned a vehicle this size before, never having hauled a substantial amount of stone, gravel, sand before, really without any idea what I was doing, which is the most fun way to do most things. Now, the problem with it is that if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you need to solve problems that you don't know that you have yet. The problem that I had, that I knew that I had, was that I was going to need a lot of sand, gravel, stone, what have you, for the driveway, for the septic, for the foundation, for all the projects I wanted to do out here. And this property is on an island. And so when you order a truckload of gravel out here, they want to charge you for the gravel and for the delivery fee, and then they want to charge you for the ferry, and they want to charge you for the driver's time waiting for the ferry, and they want to charge you for the driver's time waiting for the ferry back. And that's all fair, but it means that gravel out here is 2 to 3 times more expensive than it is on the mainland. And it's not that cheap delivered on the mainland to begin with, compared to just going to a quarry and picking it up yourself. So I did a little math and figured out that the cost for the amount of material I was going to need was going to be enough to justify doing it myself, buying a solution. So I bought an old truck. This is a Ford F Super Duty flatbed. I think it's 1997. It's got well over 200,000 miles on it. It needed some work when I bought it. I got it for a good deal because it's pretty banged up and it has some issues. And the plan is to eventually put a dump on it. We're not there yet. With things like this, the way I like to do it, the way I recommend you do it, that works really, really well, is if you don't know much about what you're trying to achieve, if you haven't done it before, if you're like this situation where I know I need to move a bunch of material, but I've never done it before, you learn by doing. You need to do enough to get started. I bought the flatbed. I put stake sides on it. Stake sides are these pockets in the frame that accept not quite a 2x4. You got to cut them down, but accept the board, and those are the stakes go around, and then you can put boards around it and make it into a giant pickup truck. And that's the stake side. So I made a set of them out of material I had on hand, quick as I could, and got going. Got moving material, and at this point I've brought in probably 30 tons of sand and gravel and crushed concrete to this site using this truck. So I'm starting to get a handle on how it works at the quarry and what holds up and what doesn't and what I need and what have you. So that learning curve, this was enough to get me through that learning curve. And most of what I learned was that this is great. It's working awesome. It's keeping the material in. I got the part goes over the top. It drives well. There aren't a lot of issues. I just wood screwed it together, and screws started breaking because there's astronomical loads on these poor boards when you load this thing up with a huge front end loader at quarry with tons and tons of gravel. So I went back and I put carriage bolts all over the place to hold it a little bit better. And but other than that, it's holding up really well. The problem, the weak point, the thing I want to address now is the tailgate attachment. This tailgate is just these 3 boards are held together with these 3 verticals, and that's one piece, and it just screws into place. These 2, this one and this one, are removable stakes. They just slot into pockets at the bottom here, and when this is empty, which it's not right now, you can just lift these straight out, set them aside, and then there's wood screws go in the sides and in here. Take those out, take the stakes out, and then this whole tailgate comes out as one piece, and then you can use a shovel or my excavator or whatever to scoop out the back. And it works, but it's the connection's not positive enough. I'm really concerned about it. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, wood screws. And those come out with an impact driver, and they hold the edges together. If those weren't there, this would be splayed out that way, and this would be splayed out that way. And it's not holding up. And it's not that surprising that it's not holding up. You can see this one, even the top board's an inch short. So I got to put the screws in down here, and they're barely hanging on. And there's a gap here. And yeah, I'm just asking too much of these poor little screws. And I see I've done it so many times, I can't reuse these because I've chowdered up this board here too much, and it's too much. I need a more positive way to retain this tailgate. Otherwise, it's gonna fail on me. I might do that on the road, and that's not okay. This has gotta work. So I'm thinking I want to do something a little more positive, a little more scoop, probably like 1/2 inch bolts all the way through the stack in the corners. And toolless. That's another thing, is right now I gotta have an impact driver to run these screws. If I show up at the quarry and I go to pull the tailgate on and my battery's dead, or I forgot my impact driver, I got the wrong bit or something stupid like that, I'm wasting everybody's time. I can't put it together, I can't load it without the tailgate on, it's just a hassle. So if I make some kind of a 1/2 inch bolt with a T-handle on it that I can thread in by hand, that'll really make a positive connection to the 4 corners, I think it'll be a much better solution. So I think the next step is I gotta unload this anyway. We'll film some of that. You can see the normal workflow with screws and the excavator yarded out, and I'll show you putting it back against the wall and how that's a little bit awkward. And then we'll get to work on an improvement, make it better. That's it. Tailgate stowed, truck is open, I got rearward visibility again. This thing is ready to go back to the pit, give me some more fill. So, I'm getting ready to do this work, coming up on time, and I even went out and I bought the hardware, the pins and the nuts and things to do the horizontal pivot design I've been thinking about. And it's been a couple of days, and I started thinking, I revisited the idea of half-barrel hinges, where you have a pipe and another pipe and a pin so that they set down on one another, and then you have a vertical axis hinge, but it escapes straight up. You can take the whole tailgate and lift it straight up and out, and the pin disengages, and it's free. It was one of the first ideas, sort of the most obvious. The reason I rejected it originally is that while the hinge assembly escapes vertically, the entire assembly does not. It would be 4 of these half-barrel hinges, 2 at the bottom and 2 at the top, and if I were loaded up, which would prevent the tailgate from translating forward, and the stakes were in, which would prevent the tailgate from translating backward, and I went with the excavator to pick it straight up, if you would start to go, but then the top half barrel from the bottom hinge would count as the bottom half barrel, top hinge, and it wouldn't come all the way out. I couldn't figure out. I thought about offsetting them, but then the axes are non-coincident and hinged properly. So I threw that idea out, and that's why I was thinking about horizontal axes. But I revisited this idea. I was thinking about it, and I think I've convinced myself that I don't need full escapement vertically. The idea was, in thinking that I did, the idea was that was one of the main ways to unload this vehicle, especially until I get the dump installed, is that I need to completely remove the tailgate and then scrape the bed out with the excavator. And that's still true. But I think that I've convinced myself that, well, the trick is that you just need to achieve that state. You don't need to, I was taking for granted that the tailgate would come straight up and out. And that's not necessary. All that has to happen is the tailgate has to disappear. So, what I can do with the hinge design is if I place the pivots intelligently, this tailgate should swing 270 degrees all the way open, all the way, and then past to lay flat on the outside of the wall and get completely out of the way. The only challenge is that when I'm loaded with material, the tailgate is pressing on the 2 stakes, preventing me from moving them, and they're preventing me from, if I disengage one side, if I pull the pins out of one side, I can't pivot it open because the stakes are stopping it. That's what they do. But all I have to do is relieve that force. So if I have the excavator, I can just press on the tailgate. Deflect it 1/4 of an inch, not much. And then I can remove the stakes. And then I can pull the pin on the one side, and then I can relieve the pressure, and the whole thing will swing open and out of the way, and I can unload. And I never need to pull it up and out, and I never need to lift it, and I don't need any of that rigmarole. So, after spending money on the hardware to do this the way that we talked about, I have since changed my mind, and I'm going to be building some hinges. I've gone through the steel I had on hand, and actually the cool thing is a lot of it I'm pretty sure I can make out of steel that I took out of this truck when I shortened the bed. So I'm going to get some C-channel and some flat bar, and I've got some solid 1-inch round, which is way overkill, but I have it, and then I've got some pipe that'll work for the hinge barrels, and that's the new plan. I'm going to move forward with that. And the cool thing about that is that I can pull pins and swing this whole thing and pin it against the side. And I don't have to throw it in the bushes somewhere and deal with it, take it back up, put it back. It doesn't go away completely. It never completely is disengaged from the truck. And then when I get to the quarry, I can just pull that pin, swing it shut, put the pin in this side, put the 2 stakes in, and it's ready to load. So I'm pretty excited about this new idea, well, old idea, revisited, whatever you want to call it. I've got a couple of the details to work out still, but I'm going to start making parts. And yeah, we're going to see how it goes. Wish me luck. Alright, this is the stuff I need to make the hinges. Most of it's reclaimed. Most of it came from the truck, actually. That's kind of cool. All the channel and all the flat bar is from this kind of garbage I cut off when I shortened the flatbed. And yeah, reclaiming steel is kind of cool. I mean, when you can add with a welder and subtract with a grinder, you can just kind of make just about anything work. But I've got 2 sizes of channel and 4 little pieces of flat bar. We're going to go together to make the bracketry. And then tube was just something I had laying around. I think I got it out of a dumpster years ago because it looked like a useful size. Yeah, it's a lot of $0 steel. Of course, it was a lot of work cutting up and cleaning up and grinding welds and things. I think it came out okay. Certainly going to be usable since, you know, it's going on kind of a beater truck. Yeah, now I actually can start making stuff. Making them look like parts instead of just sliced bits of channel.